over to our left again, you see this lovely area over here. We've got the Royal Festival Hall here, which can trace its history back to the early 1950s, around about 1952, for the Festival of Britain, where this whole complex was rejuvenated here on the South Bank for basically a display that Britain was back in business. We'd not long come out of World War II. The country was still in ruins, really, and a lot of other big cities had been bombed. And so Britain wanted to put on a festival to show that we're back in business, all the things we make and build, all art and paintings and so on. It all displayed here, the Royal Festival Hall. And it kind of rejuvenated the South Bank. The buildings were left behind and galleries and theatres have taken over. Then as you move forward, coming up on your right hand side in a moment or two, we're going to see Waterloo train station. Now Waterloo train station dates from the 1840s, and Waterloo train station, just over to the right here, is one of the busiest train stations in the United Kingdom. Before the pandemic, the annual weekly travel at Waterloo train station, just behind the tree and the bridge over to your right here, was about 68 million people transiting in and out using the tube and the trains a week at Waterloo, which is really quite mind-boggling when you bear in mind that our population of the whole UK is around about 70 million, they think. So anybody who's ever used Waterloo when it was busy knows what I'm talking about. But if you just look over to your right, just past the bridge, you'll see these beautiful buildings, quite large, and that is Waterloo train station, very famous, named after the Battle of Waterloo, 1815, where Wellington defeated Napoleon. Now another thing called Waterloo coming up now, Waterloo Bridge. Right here, we're about to go over it. It gives us a great view of the Thames. Oh, testing 1, 2. It gives us a great view of the Thames. So get your Mark 1 eyeball ready for this. Looking over to your left hand side, you've got the Hayward Gallery, the Royal Festival Hall, the Queen's Gallery. Over to the right hand side, we've got the National Theatre from the early 1970s there. And then we're going to look over to our left as we go over Waterloo Bridge. Down to our left, we'll see down towards Parliament. You'll see Big Ben with its work around the outside of it. We'll talk about that later, the rejuvenation of Big Ben. There's the London Eye, there's Parliament, there's down to Westminster, Whitehall on your left hand side. History down there on your left goes back over 1,000 years. And on our right hand side, looking that way up the River Thames, we see into the City of London. We see St Paul's Cathedral, the large domed building. And down there in the City of London, where we're heading, the history goes back over 2,000 years. So the best bridge by far for a view of London. You have a nice camera, this is the place to come. Waterloo Bridge that we're driving over is also known as the Ladies' Bridge, because it was built during World War II by an all-female work crew, because the men folk were away fighting in the armed forces. Now as we move forward on our right hand side, we have Somerset House from the mid-1700s, originally used by the Admiralty. There it is, that beautiful building on the right there. Today used by many different British government departments inside. You've also got King's College London that used half of it as well. But Somerset House on our right hand side here, famous for being used by the Admiralty, but also famous for being used as the home of the government department that kept a record of births, marriages and deaths. Long before the internet, if you had to research a family tree, you had to go to Somerset House. So, up here on our sort of front left-hand side is Covent Garden. Okay, now we've got a bit of roadworks here, like digging up London at this time of year. Covent Garden, of course, tracing its history, the sort of modern history, back to the mid-1600s. Great shopping venue, theatres, not far from it. And this is our first stop, Covent Garden. So Liam will find a nice spot to put up here. And anybody on the top deck for Covent Garden, literally just behind this building on your left-hand side. Anybody for the Covent Garden on the top? No? Okay, so no one, because here the Novell Theatre. On our left-hand side, this beautiful building just after Mamma Mia. This is the London Waldorf Hotel. 1908, the Waldorf Hotel, very famous in London, very famous for its cocktail bar in there as well. Then on our right-hand side, we've got Bush House. Now Bush House on our right-hand side dates from 1935. Now today it's used by King's College London, but originally it was used by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. And it's where the World Service of the BBC broadcasted from for many years. Bush House on your right-hand side there. And we're going to keep looking to our right. Coming up on our right-hand side, you're going to see the Australian High Commission. One of 53 High Commissions representing the Commonwealth countries in London, like an embassy, but representing a Commonwealth country. The High Commission of Australia from 1918 on your right-hand side. And we're going to keep looking to our right. We've got beautiful St Clement's Church here. Rebuilt. Testing 1, 2. Please don't break on me, microphone. St Clement's Church on your right-hand side. Rebuilt by Sir Christopher Wren. Rebuilt by Sir Christopher Wren after the Great Fire of London in 1666. Then on our left-hand side, we've got the Royal Courts of Justice from the 1820s. High Court located in the Royal Courts of Justice. Now we're going to go past the monument at Temple Bar. On your right-hand side, you'll see a large dragon on top of a monument. That's the monument at Temple Bar, and that means that we're heading into the City of London, as the dragon is the symbol of the City of London. So now we've entered into the original part of London, the City of London, that can trace its history all the way back to the Romans. Londinium, about 43 AD. But this is Fleet Street. Fleet Street at one time was home to British newspapers. So they're all headquartered here. We've got St Dunstan's in the west here, on the left-hand side. Beautiful church there, on our left. Now the newspapers moved out of here, Fleet Street, in the late 1990s, going to other areas of London. Many of them went down to the Canary Wharf area of London, down in the Docklands. So this area is kind of their spiritual home. It's kind of their spiritual home. So Fleet. Dear, dear, what's going on? So Fleet Street. As you move on down it, a very famous pub here on your left-hand side. The Ye Old Cheshire Cheese on your left from 1666, one of the first buildings rebuilt after the Great Fire of London. Ye Old Cheshire Cheese, wonderful old pub used by a lot of the journalists when they're based down here. Talking of the journalists, this building on your left, this lovely 1930s Art Deco building, is the old headquarters of the Daily Express newspaper on your left-hand side. And as you move on down to the bottom of the Fleet Street, we're going to be making our way up to beautiful St Paul's Cathedral in a moment or two. Wonderful design by Sir Christopher Wren. Now St Paul's Cathedral, probably one of the most iconic buildings in London. Not only because it was one of the major rebuilds after the Great Fire of 1666, which devastated this part of the city especially. St Paul's Cathedral is probably famous because of its history from World War II. The area here was very badly damaged during the Blitz, 1940. But St Paul survived, battered and bruised, and Sir Christopher Wren's masterpiece stood strong, becoming a national symbol of defiance during that period of our history. And here she is.
Oh, that's nice.
So St Paul, 365 feet tall, and dating from the 1680s, not long after the Great Fire of London. And this is our stop for this magnificent building, St Paul's Cathedral. So if you want great St Paul's Cathedral, this is your stop. Anybody on the top, your left-hand side, folks, you'll see outside the front of St Paul's Cathedral a statue of Queen Anne, monarch from 1702 to 1714. There's Queen Anne outside the front of beautiful St Paul's Cathedral. You see the steps leading up into the building there, the main entrance behind those gigantic pillars. It's where Diana and Charles are married back in 1981, made world famous once again for that royal wedding back in 1981 for Charles and Diana. Beautiful building, wonderful building, as you can see, fair old size. And it is a miracle that the building survived the Blitz of World War II to be with us still to this day. Now, for those people at the back of the bus, if you look behind you, if it's safe for you to do so, you can look behind you, look up and you see the dome, and you just get a wonderful shot here with your smartphone. And look at that, what a... So, we're moving now down into the heart of the City of London. As I mentioned a few moments ago, the original London, founded by the Romans. Well, the Romans first made their way to our island. They explored the southeastern corner and they found a large river, which they called the River Thames, and they decided to build a fort on the banks of the River Thames, which they called Londinium. And that started our story. So Londinium is basically the City of London. City of London is different, it's unique, likes to do things a little bit differently to the rest of metropolitan London, the 32 boroughs that make up metropolitan London. This slightly different flavour to the rest of metropolitan London. For example, they have their own mayor here. You're probably aware of Sadiq Khan. He's the mayor of metropolitan London. Well, not here. We have the Lord Mayor of the City of London. You might have seen the Lord Mayor's parade on the TV in November. Well, current Lord Mayor of the City of London is a man called William Russell. They're in position for a year, and then they change over. Now, there's a lot of roadworks. Lot of roadworks down in the city, so we're just taking a little bit of a detour to get ourselves on the right track. Now, the city, of course, usually a very busy place during the week because of its association with the world of finance. It's always been home to banks from all over the world. And Monday to Friday, in normal times, the City of London is incredibly busy. On the weekends, traditionally, it's days, it's mainly just businesses.
Online booking anything? Karon? 29? 29.
Now, the other thing, very well known, of course, about the City of London is the Great Fire of London. 2nd of September 1666 to the 6th of September 1666. Great Fire that destroyed this place, burnt it to the ground, and led to the massive rebuild. Before the fire, this area was made of largely wooden buildings, very closely put together, that the thatch roofs would often be joining, and so the walkways, the streets between would be completely covered. The year before the Great Fire, we had the plague, 1665, which almost decimated the population of this area. So in a way, the fire was almost a blessing. Allowed them to rebuild and build things like this. Over on your right hand side, Mansion House. Mentioned the Lord Mayor of the City of London, William Russell. Well, that's where he works, Mansion House. And then look to your left hand side and we've got the Bank of England, and the Bank of England dates from 1694. There it is. On our left hand side, ladies and gents, the Bank of England, where over 400,000 bars of gold are stored beneath. Second largest gold reserve in the world after the United States. Now making our way down to King William Street. Now, after the Great Fire, which destroyed thousands of homes here, 87 churches, officially only killed 6 people. The Great Fire of London, although we don't believe that, because back in that time period they didn't keep a record of poor people, where the poor lived, only rich people. So probably a lot more people died in the Great Fire. But when they rebuilt this area, they asked Sir Christopher Wren, the man behind St Paul's, to put up a monument to the whole event. And that's what we're going to see on our left in a moment. So we're going to turn right, but look left. Now, the gap comes up on your left hand side, keep looking left, there's a gap coming up between the buildings, look left, and there's a monument. There it is, the tallest freestanding stone pillar anywhere in the world. 202 feet tall, designed by Sir Christopher Wren, remembering the Great Fire of London. Now, because of the roadworks here, we have a closed stop, okay? So no stop here. But we're about to make our way out over London Bridge. So this, folks, is London Bridge, the current London Bridge dating from 1972, owned by the Queen herself. Look left as you go over London Bridge and you'll see Tower Bridge in the distance. We're crossing over the Tower Bridge later, the magnificent River Thames beneath us, and on our left, HMS Belfast. Beautiful warship there, light cruiser for World War II. She came here to London in 1971, she's a museum ship. She was launched back in 1938, served with the Royal Navy up until 1963. She took part in convoy duty, D-Day landings, and she also served in the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. So beautiful HMS Belfast over to your left. So get to the other side of the London Bridge. And you probably noticed as we came over London Bridge, a very tall building called the Shard. Now the Shard is that tall pointy thing basically over here. You can't really miss it. It was completed back in July 2012. So the 1,016 feet tall, it's the tallest building in the UK. It's got 95 floors on it, and it was designed by an Italian gentleman by the name of Renzo Piano. And part of the deal was that he got an apartment in the building after he designed it. So there you go. But controversial building, the Shard. Many Londoners love it, but equally lots of Londoners don't like it because they think it's a bit of an eyesore. There was quite a lot of complaints about it when it was officially completed back in 2012. So that is on the right, folks. You need to make your own mind up about the Shard. Got London Bridge train station here on our right hand side as well.
London Bridge Hospital.
So we do have a stop for the Shard. So if anybody wants the Shard or this area, this is the stop for the Shard. Anybody for the Shard? On down, entering into the area here, which used to be very much part of the Docklands of London. We have to remember that London, for the vast majority of its history, as buildings went, and the whole area was rejuvenated in the 1980s. Buildings that were left were refurbished and new ones, as you can see, popped up. So this area has changed a lot in recent history.
Tell him.
Now, we have another little stop down in this area.
Go on then.
City Hall just on the other side there, where City Khan works. That's his office, City Hall, that large building there. But Potter's still a reminder to us, the name, because there were lots of potteries here too at one time, making pottery that was exported all over the world. Then as you move on down, you've got the Lilac Hotel here, which is the former St. Olave's Boys Grammar School, right up until the 1960s when it was, they left and it was refurbished recently into a hotel. And then as you move forward, very shortly we're going to take a left and we're going to go out over Tower Bridge. Now I told you we're going to go out over Tower Bridge earlier when we drove over opening a few times today for a sailing barge that's going up and down the Thames. So the mighty Tower Bridge, 1894. It's a Horace Jones design, iconic symbol of London, and as I said, still a working bridge. Now so there is a sailing barge called Will. The sailing barge Will is its name. There's a website you can go to, it's called Tower Bridge Lift Times, and she's going up and down the Thames, this sailing barge, a few times. So those at the front, you'll see the road raise up in the distance. And the vessel will pass through. So we'll switch off the engine and we'll wait for a green light. So this is pretty rare, to be honest with you. On the weekends, normally during the summer, this is when Tower Bridge opens a lot for vessels going up and down the Thames. But you have to remember, back in the, well, from 18th floor, you could walk over and look down. But years ago, you were allowed to get off the Red Line buses and walk over and catch another one on the other side if you needed to, or carry on your journey on foot. So that's what used to happen. It's well worth going over those walkways on top of Tower Bridge. You get a great view. Really, really fantastic. Now, as I said earlier, she was originally... and then decided to fly through Tower Bridge, through the centre of it. We'll go through that in a minute and you'll see how tight a gap that is. Yes, so he brought his jet fighter down here and he passed through completely unannounced at 300 miles per hour. Then he flew around for a bit and went back to his airbase. And back in those days, of course there was no Twitter or anything like that, so it took a long time before anybody actually figured out what had happened and who was responsible for it, but they managed to track him down. And they decided to court-martial him for what he did. He explained the reasons behind it. But there was actually a public outcry in favour of what he did, believe it or not. And so, for this very scenario, when boats are passing through, now as I said, it's all part of the exhibition. We'll also look over to our left-hand side and we'll see the Tower of London, which is the little building with the 4 little towers. Everybody looks for a massive, great big tower. It's not, it's actually like a castle sort of looking thing, the Tower of London. We'll talk more about that in a moment. You'll see also the City of London, where we were, down by Mansion House, the Bank of England. You're seeing it from another direction there. You see the bullet-shaped building, the Gherkin, and you've got the walkie-talkie building there as well. All the nicknames given to those buildings by Londoners. The financial district there. Beautiful view of the city. If you look down at the river on your right-hand side in the distance, you see Canary Wharf. Docklands area, redeveloped in the 1980s. Another financial area there. So this is the centre section of the bridge. This is the bit that just lifted, that we're about to travel over. So here we go. So what we're travelling over now, this is the bit that just lifted up. And then if you look above, those at the back, you look above those at the back, that's the walkways above, where you can walk across. And this is the gap here between the road and the walkways. This is the gap where the Hunter jet fighter flew through in 1968 at 300 miles an hour. Alan Pollock was the pilot. Insane, but brave. On our left-hand side, we have the Tower of London, folks. Here it is, this beautiful palace, the Royal Fortress Palace, the Tower of London, built by William the Conqueror in late 1066. That's when they started on this beauty, and they've been modifying her ever since, basically. But she is a royal palace. She belongs to Her Majesty the Queen. And this, the Tower of London, famous for the crown jewels, which are homed here, which you can go in and view, pre-booking of course. 142 objects, the crown jewels. Current price of the crown jewels, well over £20 billion they say they're worth, but in fact they can't get anybody to insure them. Mainly a place of museum, a place of history. But you still have the warders here, the beefeaters dating from the late 1480s. The beefeaters, the yeoman warders. They got their nickname because they were given a large portion of beef every day, part of their diet. The beefeaters, all ex-military personnel, the rank of warrant officer, and they're still here to this day. Although during the pandemic, many of them are actually made redundant, believe it or not, but they've now got the beefeaters back here at the Tower of London. And our next stop is indeed for the Tower of London, this magnificent historical site dating from 1066 on your left hand side. A wonderful bit of our history, the Tower of London. So if anybody wants the Tower of London This is the stop, Tower of London. Anybody for the tower? Yes, so we have a London Wall going back to 43 AD, the old perimeter wall of Londinium, Roman London. There it is on the right hand side. There it is, the London Wall on the right. Then looking over to the left, great view of the Tower of London. Then looking over to our right hand side, you've got the Trinity Square Garden, home to the Merchant Seaman Memorial, remembering all the merchant sailors on our right hand side. Then if you keep looking over to the left, you've got this beautiful church coming up down the left, All Hallows by the Tower. And she is very old herself, All Hallows. She goes back to 675 AD, the original part of this church. There's a bit of it left, although she was very badly damaged during World War II. So a lot of it is a rebuild, but there is part of it that goes back to 675 AD. A lot of Roman artefacts on display underneath All Hallows as well. All's worth a visit to All Hallows by the Tower. So if you look over to your left hand side now, this big building, brown brick building coming up on your left, is Customs House. Still used by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, but back in the days of when London was a massive merchant port, this is where all the tax for the imports and exports is where it was all done. Customs House on your left hand side. 1825, Customs House. Then the next big building coming up on your left is the old Billingsgate Fish Market from 1877, one of the biggest fish markets in London back in its day. Now the space is used for corporate events. So, as we make our way down, we're going to be heading towards the embankment very shortly, but we're going to go through a little underpass on our way to that. Then we're going to get some mighty fine views of the River Thames. Just passing underneath Cannon Bridge, Park Cannon Street train station above us here. Just passing by St James's Garnet High, wonderful church here, one of the rebuilds after the Great Fire of London of 1666. So here's the underpass, so we're going to go through this, and once we come out the other side we're going to be going along the embankment. So if you have a look over to your left, you'll see a big brown brick building with a chimney there. That's the Tate Modern Art Gallery, the old power station, which is now the Tate Modern. Then we're going to get up level with the mighty River Thames very shortly as we go along the embankment. So here we are then. Now, looking over to your left-hand side, you can see they're doing a lot of work here. Mighty River Thames, the whole reason for London being here in the first place, goes all the way to Kemble in Gloucestershire, actually, at the Thames head, where it's following the course of the Thames deep below. One of the biggest drilling projects in the world, actually, this new sewer system for London, following the Thames deep below it. Now, as we move forward, we're getting a great view of the Thames from the embankment, looking towards the south bank over there in the distance. You see the London Eye, National Theatre. On our right hand side here, we've got the area known as Temple, home to all the legal profession, your barristers, your lawyers. Your lawyers based in there. Also in the centre of that, you can't see it sadly from this position, but it is in there, the Church of the Knights Templar, which is well worth a visit. And we have a stop right here by the mighty River Thames, if anybody fancies this area. Anybody for the River Thames. There is another stop further down for the Thames, but anybody. We drove over Waterloo Bridge earlier, if you're with me. This is from the early 1940s, Waterloo Bridge, 1942, known as the Ladies' Bridge, as she was completed by an all-female work crew. Our men folk were away in the armed forces fighting during the Second World War. So this is the Ladies' Bridge, Waterloo Bridge, that we're about to pass underneath here. Then as we make our way down, got Hungerford Bridge here, making its way to Charing Cross railway station on our right hand side behind the trees. Charing Cross railway station just behind the trees on your right was virtually destroyed during World War II, so what we have today is a rebuild. And you can see the walkways either side here of Hungerford Bridge that put in around about the year 2000. Celebrate the Millennium, part of a number of projects that happened in London, like the Millennium Dome, the London Eye. These walkways here either side of Hungerford Bridge were put in to make it easier for people wanting to get from this area over to the south bank. So you've got those two lovely walkways either side of Hungerford Bridge that we're just about to go underneath. So, as we move on down, the London Eye, the Millennium Wheel, 1999 she went up, to be ready to celebrate the year 2000, the dawn of the millennium. 32 pods you get into, go around, get a great view of London. Then over on our right hand side behind the trees we've got Whitehall. We'll be driving down the main part of Whitehall later on, but Whitehall is home to many participated in. So the MOD on your right hand side and the MOD Memorial Gardens on your right. If you look down to the left hand side, you'll see a memorial here on the embankment to the Battle of Britain. Back in 1940, there it is, down on the left hand side there, the Battle of Britain Memorial. If you're walking around this area, well worth looking at that beautiful engravings there, remembering the Battle of Britain. And then we've got Scotland Yard, New Scotland Yard on our right hand side, the headquarters of London's Metropolitan Police. They've moved a fair few times in recent history, but this is where they are now on our right hand side, New Scotland Yard. And then as we move down, we have our next stop by the mighty River Thames. If you want to do the river boat tour, this is where you can get it down here by Westminster Pier on your left. Anybody for the river bus here with the scaffolding around it, you've probably already noticed. There's Big Ben, iconic symbol of London, a famous clock tower belonging to the Houses of Parliament, otherwise known as the Palace of Westminster. And the Palace of Westminster can trace its history back all the way to 1016, believe it or not, when it was a royal palace for the monarchy. But that burnt down, the original Palace of Westminster, in 1834, and then this was rebuilt 1876. Charles Barry and Augustus Pugin were the men responsible for this wonderful Gothic-style building. The current Palace of Westminster, the Houses of Parliament, home to the House of Commons and the House of Lords, where our elected politicians sit. Well, in the case of the Commons, 650 members of Parliament sit, representing all regions of the UK, elected by the people. House of Lords, nearly 800 lords in there. Nobody elects them, but they're sat in there. And there's Big Ben. There it is, the wonderful clock tower, and as you can see, it's still got scaffolding around it. Back in 2017, the scaffolding went up, and it was due to come down by now, but it's been extended out until 2023. Full refurbishment of the clock tower, the clock faces. Parliament itself is undergoing a massive refurbishment inside and out. And to be honest with you, there isn't actually any confirmed end date for this refurbishment currently. The pandemic has thrown all those plans right out the window. But it's still under refurbishment, as you can see. So, once again inside the House of Commons, where you see them all shouting and booing at each other, 650 MPs sit there. House of Lords, 800 lords, and 30 bars inside of Parliament where they can buy discounted alcohol. On your right hand side, Winston Churchill in Parliament Square. There's Winston, the statue on the right hand side. Parliament Square, often used as a place of protest. And if you look over to your left hand side, you've got beautiful Westminster Abbey, the big building here on your left hand side. Wonderful, wonderful bit of our history. We'll come back this way later on and have another look at Westminster Abbey, but this is where the Queen had a coronation. William and Kate got married back in 2011, Prince William and Kate Middleton, as they were. Then we got the statue of Abraham Lincoln on your left hand side here, famous United States President. You think, what on earth is Lincoln doing in London? Well, he's here because Parliament Square's got a series of statues around it representing the good and the great from British and international politics. So the two for me are Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill, two great men in their own ways, very different of course. So Parliament Square on your right hand side, you've probably seen this in the newspapers and the news. As I said, it's usually a place of protest. Now, we're going to make our way down Whitehall. And Whitehall itself was a palace. The Whitehall Palace, built for King Henry VIII, 1530, but burnt down in the 1690s, Whitehall Palace, and it was rebuilt to give us what we have today. These wonderful buildings that home to not so wonderful government departments like the tax office on your left hand side, the main headquarters of Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs on the left. Yeah, they do. And they don't like giving it back either, do they? So yeah, this is the headquarters of HMRC on our left hand side. You also got some other government departments in there. We also have a stop here as well. Anybody for Revenue and Customs?
No.
Got to pay my tax bill, just run in. As you can see, if you look down here by the door, you've also got departments for digital, culture, media and sport, but they really are, no disrespect to them, small. Shows you've got the Cabinet War Rooms, which is now a museum used by Winston Churchill during World War II, so it's signed for that on your left. Then also on the left hand side you've got the Foreign and the Commonwealth Office. In the centre of the road on the right right hand side you see the cenotaph, the war memorial here to the fallen from the 2 world wars and many other conflicts. Put there 1920, the cenotaph on your right hand side. Then keep looking to your left hand side and you've got the big black iron gates here of Downing Street. Yes, if you look to your left, you'll see it when we go through the traffic lights. You'll see the monument. Number 10 Downing Street, built back in July 2019. If you look to your left, there's Downing Street, folks. There it is.
Downing Street.
Then we've got the Cabinet Office briefing rooms on your left hand side. Ministry of Defence back over to the right there.
Downing Street.
And we have a stop, not too far from Downing Street. So if anybody has an appointment with the Prime Minister, this is a stop. Anybody for Downing Street? No? Okay. Yeah, we do see enough of it, don't we, on the TV? Now, coming up on your left-hand side, we've got Horse Guards Parade. So when this used to be the Palace of Whitehall back in the days of King Henry VIII, Horse Guards Parade was the main sort of area where they kept the horses, the tilling grounds, if you like. It's the only bit where still remains the Palace of Westminster. And if you look at Palace of Whitehall, sorry, if you look to your left, you can see the troops on station here. We've got the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery there today on horseback. Usually we've got the Household Cavalry, Blues and Royals, or the Life Guard there, but we've got the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery on today. Then on our left hand side we've got the Admiralty buildings. This is where the Royal Navy, if my microphone works, this is where the Royal Navy was once run from. The Admiralty buildings on your left, right up until the 1960s, but now part of government run buildings and departments. Then we move up into Trafalgar Square, designed by Charles Barry. Trafalgar Square dates from 1840, and in the middle of it, of course, you've got the magnificent Nelson's Column, 169 feet tall. On the top of it, statue of the man himself, Admiral Horatio Nelson, that led the Royal Navy to victory. The Battle of Trafalgar back in 1805, where 33 ships from the Royal Navy defeated 47 French and Spanish Navy vessels off Cape Trafalgar off the coast of Spain. Big win for the Royal Navy and the British at the beginning of the Napoleonic Wars. It lasted until 1815. So Nelson's victory remembered here in Trafalgar Square. Bottom of the column, you've got 4 large lions there, representing the 4 countries of the United Kingdom: England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Then you keep looking over to your right, you see the 4th plinth. The 4th plinth. Dollop of ice cream with the cherry on the top. They change the artwork there every couple of years. Got the Canadian High Commission from 1925 on your right hand side, Canada House.
Brazilian.
And now we're moving up into Pall Mall. And Pall Mall, dating from the mid-1600s, originally was a high-class shopping area. Now, here it is in front of us. It is an area known for its gentlemen's clubs, like the Institute of Directors Club on your left-hand side with the blue flag. A bit further down, you've got the Reform Club, the Travellers Club, the Royal Automobile Club. This is your old boys network. So the old boys network meet up the Pall Mall and the gentlemen's clubs. Then on your right-hand side, you'll see the Crimean War Memorial. Look to your right-hand side, you see a lady holding a lamp. Florence Nightingale, of course, who made a name during the Crimean War, helping the wounded soldiers, and of course putting a name down in history with those efforts. There is Florence Nightingale on your right hand side. Making our way up into Piccadilly Circus now, which will be at the top of the road, just leaving Pall Mall. Very interesting place to explore, Pall Mall. If you're walking around this area, you can get down to St James's Palace at the end of Pall Mall as well. That's down to the far left. If you're walking around this area, well worth going down to St James's Palace. But we're heading up to Piccadilly Circus. On our right hand side in a moment, at the top of the road, we're going to see a statue which is well known in London. If you ever looked at the Evening Standard newspaper, it's the symbol of that. It's the statue of Eros, the Greek god of love and romance. 1819 he popped up here in Piccadilly Circus. We'll see him very shortly. So as you get to the top of the road, keep looking over to your right hand side. You'll see Eros, he's a tiny little statue. If you've ever seen him in a book or on TV, you think he's quite big. He's a tiny little statue, little fellow with wings, on top of the Shaftesbury monument, remembering Lord Shaftesbury. So keep looking to your right. And here is Eros. There he is, little fellow with the wings, the Greek god of love and romance. There's Eros, Piccadilly Circus. Beyond that, you've got Leicester Square, you've got Shaftesbury Avenue, you've got Soho. All over to your right hand side. Now we make our way along, coming up very shortly on your left hand side. World War II, but what's left is still standing. We have a stop before that as well. I'm getting ahead of myself. If anybody wants to stop for Piccadilly Circus, anybody for Piccadilly Circus, this is your stop. Anybody from the late 1680s, there it is. Beautiful little church. And in normal times they normally have a market there. Such a shame they don't have it currently, but that's a lovely little place to explore. Then we've got Fortnum and Masons coming up on your left hand side. Fortnum and Masons from 1707. So from 1707, Fortnum and Masons on your left. We'll have Her Majesty the Queen does her shopping, and the Prince of Wales. Fortnum and Masons just on the left there. Then as you move on down past Wellington House on the right, home of the Royal Academy. You've got Old Bond Street leading up into Mayfair on your right as well. That is St James's Palace, just down the bottom there. It really doesn't scream Royal Palace. It's quite subtle. It's well worth looking at. Then on our left hand side, got the Ritz Hotel. From the early 1900s, the Ritz, very famous hotel here in London. Actors, celebrities, politicians have stayed here over the years. Winston Churchill met General Eisenhower here and General de Gaulle for several meetings during World War II at the Ritz. And we have a stop here by the Ritz Hotel. Anybody fancy this area? You've got Green Park on your left hand side. Just on the other side of Green Park is Buckingham Palace. I'll have a look at the palace later on. The elephant, very endangered species now. Well worth having a walk through here. Look at the elephants, such a wonderful thing to see, isn't it? Beautiful. Have a walk through there, take pictures of the elephants. Now Mayfair on our right hand side, another very affluent area of London. Well worth exploring Mayfair. Going up any of the roads on your right will take you right into the heart of it. Grosvenor Square, Berkeley Square, Hanover Square, main centres of Mayfair, all behind these buildings on your right. You look over to your right hand side, you'll see a large blue flag flying outside the Guards Club, open to members of the Guards Regiments, the British Army. The light blue flag flying outside the RAF Club, open to members and former members of the Royal Air Force. Those clubs are over to the right hand side. We have a stop by Green Park here. Anybody for this area? Eon Productions. Eon Productions are the people behind the James Bond films. That's where they're based. Administrative headquarters, anyway, over to the right. On your left hand side, you've got the Royal Air Force Bomber Command War Memorial, remembering the men of the Bomber Command during World War II. They had a very tough time of it. Put up around about 2012, this war memorial, remembering those aircrew on your left-hand side. Then we've got the Hyde Park Corner roundabout. And in the centre of the Hyde Park Corner roundabout, you've got the Wellington Arch, remembering the Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley. Look to the right-hand side, there it is. On the top of it, you've got the Angel of Peace landing onto the quadriga, the ancient chariot of war, designed by Decimus Burton. Wellington Arch put here around about 1826, 1827. Originally meant to be outside of Buckingham Palace, Wellington Arch, but they moved it up here. Out of the way, as Buckingham Palace was being renovated and extended. We'll talk about that later when we're near Buckingham Palace. Inside of the Hyde Park Corner roundabout, on your right hand side, you've got the Australia Memorial, remembering the men and women of the Australian Armed Forces. You also got the New Zealand Memorial in there as well. You also got the memorial to the Royal Artillery coming up on your right hand side. Remember, men and women of the Royal Artillery, there it is on the right. Then you've got up in front of us to our left hand side the wonderful archway entrance into Hyde Park. We'll talk a bit more about Hyde Park in a moment. Then on your left hand side you've got this beautiful sand coloured building from the 1720s. This is Apsley House, former home of the Duke of Wellington. Field Marshal Arthur Wellesley led us to victory at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815 when Napoleon was finally defeated. So as we swing to the left, we've still got Apsley House on our left hand side. Just about to make our way up the Park Lane in Hyde Park. Got a wonderful sculpture here of a horse's head over on your right hand side. This used to be up by Marble Arch, but they've moved it down into this area now. Oh, a lovely old Jag if you're into cars on your right hand side. Lovely. Now we've got the Queen Elizabeth Gates on your left hand side here, remembering the Queen Mum, the Queen Mother, who passed away back in 2002. So the Queen Mum Gates, Queen Elizabeth Gates on your left hand side. This part of Hyde Park of the Queen Mum Gates? Yes. Okay, so we have some of our friends coming down. Yeah, the inner fort's just on the way out by the... Split up into three smaller manors, but the Hyde Park that we know today dates from 1536. King Henry VIII used it as his private hunting grounds, but then after that it became a public royal park during the reign of King James I. That happened, and it's remained a public royal park ever since. If you walk all the way across the Hyde Park on your left hand side, you will come to Kensington Palace, another royal palace where William and Kate and their children live with a number of other royals. So Kensington Palace on the far side of Hyde Park. Got to get through Kensington Gardens first before you get to it. But it's well worth taking a stroll through the Hyde Park, beautiful place to go to. Throughout its history, during the summer months, especially in normal times, it's used for music concerts, lots of big names. In fact, all the big names you can think of in the music industry, from the rolling up. If you look over to your right hand side, in the centre of the road here, you'll see another memorial, this time to the animals in war. So this is remembering all the animals used by the British military in campaigns before fully mechanised war began, from donkeys to horses, everything. Animals in War Memorial on your right. And then this area of Hyde Park on your left hand side is known as Hyde Park Corner, Speaker's Corner. 1866, down here on your left hand side on a Sunday, you can speak your mind about whatever you want without fear of prosecution, if I can say it, or persecution. So Speaker's Corner on our left here. We have a stop for Speaker's Corner. Anybody for Speaker's Corner?
What? Stop pushing me. Thank you.
Oh yeah, we've got some people coming down, Liam, people coming down. And you're going to be able to walk up it when it's all eventually finished. And there's going to be flags of all the different countries in the world on the top.
That's nice.
And it's meant to represent mankind getting back to nature. And so when this is eventually finished, you'll have real grass, as I say, real vegetation, everything on there. You'll be able to walk up it. There'll be flags flying on the top. It'll look pretty good when it's all finished.
Balin sila ni daddy niya dito siya sa Pikas, may initan.
So, we make our way around here, and very shortly, coming up on our right hand side, get another view of Marble Arch. Directly in front of us is Oxford Street, one of the main shopping streets in London, just over a mile long, full of shops. Interconnects with Regent Street, again, another famous shopping street in London, but Oxford Street up in front of you there. Marble Arch to your right hand side coming up. 1827, John Nash, here it is.
Oxford Street na.
And as I said, moved here as they were extending Buckingham Palace. The legend behind Marble Arch, of course, is that Queen Victoria ordered it out of the way as a carriage couldn't fit through the centre. That's nonsense. That's an urban legend. It's because they were extending Buckingham Palace. There's Marble Arch on your right.
Yaya sila sa 24. Night out daw ni. Night out daw ni. Kauban. Amiga na ko sa London.
Now, Oxford Street on the left hand side. In the next couple of years, Oxford Street is to become fully pedestrianised, so no traffic allowed down there at all in the next couple of years. And we have a stop for Oxford Street. If anybody wants the Oxford Street for a bit of shopping, anybody for Oxford Street at all? Anybody for Oxford Street? No? Okay, so no, nobody on the top for the Oxford Street?
No. Wala ay shopping.
On our left hand side here, if you like your cars, Aston Martin, main dealership in London on your left.
Nice car.
Oh, I want to buy one.
Come on, James. You buy that one.
I'm going to get one and take it here.
You go and take it here. Look at the motorbike. Oh my god.
On the bike, yeah.
We'll buy 3 tomorrow. Nice.
420 rooms inside the Grosvenor House Hotel, one of the 3 big hotels on the Park Lane, very famous, the Grosvenor House Hotel.
Pwede mag-book diri para mag-ano ka na. Bed and breakfast para makakahuway.
Next hotel that will be coming up very shortly on the left will be the Dorchester. Dorchester, built back in 1931, used by actors, celebrities of the day, right up until modern times, to be honest with you. Here it is, the Dorchester, beginning on your left-hand side now. Now, Dorchester during World War II was used as the personal headquarters of General Eisenhower. If you look round to your left, there's the front of the Dorchester. Oh, lots of fancy cars parked out in front there. A few Ferraris, was there?
Yeah. Many cars got here as well.
How much per night there, James?
Big building, built in 1963, but still very well known, and also used by a lot of celebrities. We've got a stop just by it, actually. The Hilton, just on the left-hand side here. Anybody for the Hilton or the Dorchester? Anybody for these? No, nobody on the top for this. And they're in London. have another hotel on your left here, the Intercontinental Hotel. Not as famous as the three we've just seen, but used a lot by politicians from other countries when they come to visit for big functions in London. So the Intercontinental Hotel on your left. And then on your right hand side you've got Wellington Arch. Once again you get a great view of the Angel of Peace landing onto the quadriga, the Chariot of War.
Hey, you got a bare bottom.
Designed by Decimus Burton, Wellington Arch.
Oh,
So Wellington Arch to your right. Now if you look over to your right, you'll see that Wellington Arch is open, that people can walk through it or cycle through it, as you can probably see. And you think, well, why is that then? Because so many historical objects in London are blocked off from traffic. Well, the reason why it's left open is because the gardens, Palace Gardens, have a lake in there. They've got a helicopter landing pad, and this is where during normal times the garden parties are held. 3 each year, where the royal family invite people from across the Commonwealth and the UK to come along and meet members of the royal family. People that have done great work for their local communities, perhaps people serving in the police, the fire, the NHS, the armed forces and so on. First helicopter that landed in the back gardens here on the left hand side back in May 1953. We'll have a closer look at Buckingham Palace later on, don't worry. You look over to your left hand side, you'll see where the gardeners of Buckingham Palace live and work. Very large staff here. Currently standing around about 400 or 500 people working at Buckingham Palace, but those numbers did go. The staff live on your left hand side. The palace is on the other side of that, but we'll have a look at the palace later on. This is where the people that make it work live. And if you're working at the palace, you live here rent-free. It's not bad, is it?
You live in the palace, rent-free. So when you work, libre ka kasi. Pero magkinto lang ka. Kinto ka ni Elizabeth. Muna giniingon nga libre, pero kinto ka.
So just entering into the area of London known as Victoria now, named after Queen Victoria. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our way up and turn around and come back down so we can go to Buckingham Palace. The way the road is laid out here, this is where we have to do it. They finished the redevelopment here around about 2017, making this area more social in the sense that there's lots of restaurants and pubs here. Before it was mainly offices. A lot of them government departments actually based in this area. But the whole area changed. It's hopefully will come back to life again. And then on the left hand side you've got Victoria train station just on our left here. And anybody for Victoria train station. Anybody for Victoria train station. Anybody on the top of this one? No? And during World War I, this is where most soldiers departing the southeast of England went to the coast. Folkestone and Dover, down to get boats across to the Western Front in France. Rewarded all his friends, including the Grosvenors, that came across from France with him, and they were rewarded with a lot of land in London, including Belgravia. And a very affluent area of London, Belgravia. Many very famous people have lived here over the years, including former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, actors like Michael Caine, Sean Connery and Roger Moore, who all lived here at one time or the other. Sir Laurence Olivier is another one.
You can see where you're going.
And still very... So most of the people that come to live in Belgravia, Mayfair, they rent their property They rent their home from the Duke of Westminster estate, the Grosvenors. If you're going to buy it outright from the Grosvenor family, you have to buy the land as well.
Oh dear.
And so, in recent history, the last one I can think of was about 2018. One of the houses here that you can see in Belgravia was bought, and that means including the land it's built on, and it was sold for about £30 million.
Oh my God.
So if you have a spare £30 million, you can too live in Belgravia.
Where we get that?
Or you can just rent.
No thanks. Belgravia. Very posh. Posh too.
Now, most of the gardens that you see here, they look very lovely, don't they? But these are key square gardens, so they're not open to members of the public. Okay, these gardens are only open to the people, available, shall I say, to the people that own or rent property here in Belgravia. When you get your door key for your flat or your apartment or your house, you also get a key for the gardens. So it's only you and your neighbours that are allowed to use the gardens here. Members of the public can use them if you jump over the fence or gate, but you're not meant to. But it's only open to the people who actually live here, these lovely gardens.
Very posh
I
garden.
mean, if you're paying £30 million for a property, you'd probably say I would like the access to the gardens as
Yes,
well, yeah.
of course.
And the public stay out.
What bite we have to it?
Yeah, we'll buy tomorrow. we'll rob a bank. Grabe, no? 13 million? For a build. And you have to buy it to Blue family. Naka na mga Hollywood star. Oo.
As a gigantic car park, basically, for the army. The army were brought in to patrol central London to reassure the public, and they based their vehicles in Belgravia because it was very near to Buckingham Palace, where we're heading back to now.
Now we're going to Buckingham.
So as we're heading back towards Buckingham Palace to have a closer look at it, we'll start talking about Buckingham Palace. The history of Buckingham Palace, well, it goes all the way back to 1703. It was originally built for the Duke of Buckingham, and it was known as Buckingham House. But in 1761, that was purchased by the monarchy, and it was purchased for Queen Charlotte, the wife of George IV, and it was her home, so it became known as the Queen's House. For Queen Charlotte, the Buckingham House. It didn't really become Buckingham Palace that we know and love today until the reign of Queen Victoria, which began in 1837 and lasted to 1901. And during Victoria's reign, she decided to take over the Queen's House. It became Buckingham Palace. She had it modified, she had it enlarged, and every monarch after Victoria has kept Buckingham Palace as their main palace in London. Our current monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, took over back in February 1952 after her father George VI sadly passed away. Kept that tradition up. And so this is the main palace for the monarch on our left hand side. This is the back of it. We'll see the side of it in a moment. And we get a good view of it. Now the Queen, in recent times, has not spent a lot of time here. She spent a lot of time at Windsor Castle, and traditionally in the summer she goes up to Balmoral in Scotland. So if you look to your left hand side, you see into the back courtyards of the palace here, with the horses and carriages and motor cars it kept. You can go in here and have a look around the Royal Mews, as it's called, where the royal family's modes of transport are on display. Keep looking on your left hand side. Main part of the building coming up now. 775 rooms inside Buckingham Palace, including its own art gallery, the Queen's Gallery on your left, which you can go into. And this is our stop for Buckingham Palace. So anybody for Buckingham Palace, this is your stop. Anybody for Buckingham Palace? No? Okay, so no one coming down from the top for the palace. Now, large vehicles like this bus can't drive out in front of the palace anymore. That's been stopped for many years now for security, so we have to turn right in a moment. But I'm going to get you all to look left in a moment to see the front courtyards of the palace and see the Victoria Memorial with a beautiful gold statue at the front, Tate, the Greek goddess of victory. You'll see that outside the front of the palace in a moment. Now, normally in the summer, Buckingham Palace is open. You can go inside and have a look around the staterooms, but that's not happened this year or last year because of recent events, of course. Get back to normal relatively soon, fingers crossed. So, looking over to your left-hand side, this is the side of the palace. A lot of the cars that are parked here belong to the people that work in the palace. They're allowed to park here. Obviously, you've got some police cars parked here too. There's actually a post office in here as well. Yes, Buckingham Palace has its own post office to deal with the volume of mail that's mailed to it, so that you do see some Royal Mail vans parked in here too. It's quite a common sight. So on your left-hand side, you're going to be looking for the front courtyards of the palace. You're going to see a large memorial roundabout in front of it. Basically, it used to be a roundabout, but the roads changed in the early 2000s down here by Buckingham Palace. Was built, and the memorial. If you look to your left-hand side, the front courtyards of the palace, the changing the guard takes place, and then you've got, there it is, there's Tate on top of the Victoria Memorial and the Mall. And as you move down on our left-hand side, we've got Wellington Barracks, named after the Duke of Wellington. Wellington Barracks, originally built back in the late 1800s, modified after World War II as it was badly damaged during the Blitz. Wellington Barracks on the left-hand side is home to the Foot Guard, home to the Coldstream Guards, the Grenadier Guards, the Welsh Guards, the Scots Guards and the Irish Guards. Foot Guards, very famous units of the British Army. You know them when they're in the ceremonial duty with the red jackets, the big furry bearskin black hats, but they are frontline soldiers, frontline infantry, mechanised regiments. Here's the main entrance into Wellington Barracks on your left-hand side. Now, on our right-hand side, you've got St James's Park Underground Station on your right. But above it, you've got the headquarters of the London Underground, the Tube. The only way to really get around London, this is its administrative headquarters on your right-hand side above the Tube station, and the Tube started running back in 1863.
Fully functioning pagyapon.
Caxton House on our left-hand side now. This is a government department, home to work and pensions on our left-hand side, Caxton House. Then on the left-hand side you've got Westminster Methodist Hall on our left-hand side here, beautiful building, but we're turning our attention over to the right-hand side here for the mighty Westminster Abbey. Established back in 960 AD was Westminster Abbey, originally for Benedictine monks, but then it became a church for the royal family around about the late 1400s, and its full title is a Royal Peculiar, which means it's a church belonging directly to the monarch, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Indeed, this is where a coronation took place back in 1953. Over 3,000 individuals buried inside of Westminster Abbey, from the great and the good from British history. Monarchs like Henry III, Mary I, Elizabeth I, Charles II. There's also non-royals buried in there, people like Charles Darwin, Sir Isaac Newton, Stephen Hawking, he was recently buried in there. You've got people like Geoffrey Chaucer, Charles Dickens and so on. So Westminster Abbey really is a place to visit. It is very impressive indeed. Again, if you look over to your left, you'll see the statue of Abraham Lincoln, US President, joining the other statues here of the great and the good from British and international political history. Winston Churchill, main statue for many people down here, Winston. You'll see him on the right hand side looking across to Houses of Parliament, once again the Palace of Westminster, the home of British democracy, rebuilt after a fire in 1830, but probably likely beyond that. So there is Parliament and Big Ben over to your far right hand side. Winston Churchill just coming up after the trees on your right. Here's Winston with the walking stick looking across to Parliament. There's Winston on your right hand side. On your left hand side, Whitehall, which we drove down earlier. See the cenotaph in the middle of the road there. Well, we remember the fallen from both world wars back in November, on Remembrance Sunday. So look over to your right hand. So if you look over to your right hand side, you see Big Ben, 315 feet tall is Big Ben. There it is, iconic symbol of London. Big Ben is actually the nickname of the bell inside, nicknamed after Benjamin Hall, the designer bell. There she is, or there he is, shall I say, Big Ben. Now if you're able to see out the back of the bus, if you look at the clock face that you can see, that's one of the new ones that they've installed. And if you're a big fan of Big Ben, you might notice a slight change. The clock face, the dials and the hands are now a royal blue. Before they were black. So they've been taken back to their original colour scheme that it had when it was unveiled after the rebuild by Charles Baron Augustus Peugeot. So they've taken the colours of Big Ben back to how it was originally, which is really great. It's a subtle change, but if you do know London quite well, you do notice it. There's Westminster Bridge in front of us. We make our way out over the mighty River Thames once again. To make our way over Westminster Bridge, you're going to see on your left, put up for the year 2000, celebrate the dawn of the new millennium. You'll see the old County Hall buildings on the left hand side, once the home of London's regional government, local government, now home to offices and the amusement arcades. So that's on our left. And then over to our right hand side, you've got St Thomas's Hospital. And we have a stop here by the London Eye. Anybody for the London Eye at all? We're going to go round back where we started in a moment, but anybody for this stop right next to the River Thames? We're going to go round and park up around the corner by the London Eye in a moment. But anybody here for this stop? No. Okay, so no one coming down for this one. And as you can see,